Hello? Someone's watching me. I know the topic, scary or rather disturbing stories from my childhood, are outdated or furthermore considered cliche, but I thought you might like this one. This one was from my high school years. I wasn't always rebellious. In fact, I was more of a goody two-shoe. I wasn't what you would call an angel of a child, but I was still keeping up appearances, had good grades, was disciplined enough. I had pretty keen manners. I hung out with this delinquent, Cody. He was a dick. I mean a huge dick. Nobody really liked him, but he was quite wealthy, and while his parents were away, he would throw huge parties that half of the 10th grade students from my high school would go to. I was always invited to these, but he always started parties at awkward times at night, like midnight, 6 in the morning and stuff like that. His last party he had ever thrown started at 3 in the morning, and my parents would immediately decline, so I didn't even bother asking. I know it wasn't of my nature, and now that I look back, it was a fucking stupid choice, but I decided I would sneak out. My dad stayed up till 1 every night and never emerged from his bedroom until the following afternoon. My mom always slept till noon, using "I need my beauty sleep" as an excuse. Time came. It was the night of the party. It was about 1:30-ish, and my dad had already stumbled into his bedroom and was snoring at this point. I slowly twisted the handle of my door to reveal the inky blackness of the hallways. Now would be the perfect time to escape. If not now, never. He lived pretty far away. It would take at least an hour to get there by foot, and he wanted me to arrive early to help set up. I softly closed my door and lightly paced towards our sliding glass door. I opened it so slowly it must have been a minute before there was an opening big enough for me to squeeze through. Once I was through, I took no risk and took another minute to close it again. I was outside, and the moon illuminated the ground quite well. I lived in a desert area, and the risk of coyotes was high, especially for a bright, full moon like this one. But I had a pocket knife to defend myself. They were usually more scared of you than you were of them, but this was just a precaution. You can never ever be too careful out here. There's many stories involving coyote-related incidents, but that's for another time. I slid down into the ditch below and continued my trek. The terrain was rugged and difficult to navigate. I had to dodge tall brush and jump over eroded crevices in the earth. I checked my watch. It was around 2:15, and I knew I must be close, because I saw a familiar house that I always passed by while walking on the sidewalk to get to Cody's house. Only a couple more blocks and I would have made it. The terrain had gotten surprisingly less jagged and smoother after a couple of minutes. And besides the empty beer bottles and the cardboard boxes that littered the ground, something else caught my eye. There was a brown torn tarp that had a large, and when I say large, I mean it, a large lump in the middle. I stopped for a moment and observed. Before my curiosity managed to claw its way through, I slowly approached it. I touched it softly. Just then, something enormous burst out in a low-pitched, wild scream of fright. I was knocked back on my ass, and I was frozen in fear as I noticed a tall figure emerge from among the dirt. It was a bear-like creature that wore a dark brown trench coat with light brown pants that seemed to resemble sweatpants. He had loafers on. They seemed like size 29. I know I'm exaggerating, but it was honestly human. The bear-like creature stood up. He was tall. He must have been like 7 feet tall. And even that might be an understatement. Long white hair protruded from every visible inch of body there was, almost like an animal. Its glossy eyes met mine, and I was ready to run. I managed to stutter out a few words. I stopped, examining the creature once more. What are you? The figure looked at me again and let out a loud, hearty chuckle. He wiped a few tears of joy from under his eye and gave me a smile. Why, my boy, I am Mr. Trenchfoot, he said, still grinning at me. His tone was nothing short of friendly, and that was the only thing stopping me from making a mad fucking dash back to my house. He gave me a puzzled look and asked, Do you by any chance know the date? I thought he was joking at first and I laughed a bit. Then I saw his serious expression. I stuttered again but managed to collect myself. It's June 7th, I said. He looked shocked, or rather intrigued. He looked at me again and my eyes met his once more. My, I have been asleep quite long. It was November last time I was awake, he said, still sounding jovial. Now tell me, what have I missed? We engaged into a conversation. It lasted a good 15 minutes. We spoke about politics, the news on celebrities and stuff like that. I told him about school and how I was a part of the track team. He spoke for a while. I looked down at my watch and noticed the time. I had about 16 minutes to get there and help him set up. I sat up from the rock I was on, which I previously rested. I have to get going, I said. Mr. Trenchfoot stood up and wiped the dirt off his coat and coughed before speaking. He walked towards a pipe, or rather a flood drain. Follow me, he said, entering it. I need to show you something. He crawled further into the pipe, and soon he was enveloped in darkness. I dared not enter and stood there for a while. He turned, and the only reason I knew that is because the little bit of moonlight illuminated his eyes, just as it would a dog's or a cat's. I stepped back a bit, a little frightened, and I reminded him that I had to go. Come here, he said softly. He repeated each time he got more angered and more menacing. Come here. Come here. Come here. He inched forward, just enough so I could see him fully. Long black claws protruded from his fingers. He clawed the sides as he repeated, Come here now! Come here now! I ran as fast as I could up the slope, not daring to look back at him. However, I did manage to look back once. He was standing there, too far to catch me at this point, staring at me with his glossy eyes. I ran so fast and climbed over my fence, this time not cautious of not making any noise, and I ran inside, shaken up and frightened. My dad heard my heavy breathing and must have thought I was having a panic attack, which I was, and rushed to my aid. I explained something had tried to attack me, and he called the police without hesitation. I explained to the police where it happened and who I saw. They took no time to rush to the area and scanned it. No tarp of Mr. Trenchfoot in sight. I was there, my mom and my dad holding me at a safe distance. I pointed towards the pipe which he tried to lure me in, and the chief motioned several armed men in. They didn't find him, however, and they still haven't to this day. That was my story. Creepy, right? Yeah, well, things have been the same. Well, I got grounded for a couple weeks, but they let me off because they were glad I was safe. So I guess you could say this had a happy ending. I guess for me at least. I still haven't told you the best part. You know how I said they didn't find him? Well, when they kicked open the grate, they entered a concrete room, no bigger than a walk-in closet. Again, they didn't find Mr. Trenchfoot in there. However, they did find something. They found Mr. Trenchfoot's tarp in there, still dusty as ever. In the corner of the room was a pile of bloody, torn clothes, not much bigger than the clothes I had been wearing.